Welcome back to the Means Report. We appreciate you staying with us as our conversation with 10th District Congressman from Georgia, Jody Hice, continues. And Congressman Hice, let's talk about the efforts to extend religious liberty that the president just signed by way of an executive order, giving people to the freedom to have more freedom of religion, less government interference. Your thoughts on that?
I'm extremely grateful for the president for taking the lead on this. I think most people in America are not aware just how serious a problem we have with the infringement upon religious liberties. And for the president to recognize that and to come out with an executive order stating that the First Amendment means what it says, I think is extremely important. Basically, it's a two-step executive order. First is the order itself, and the second will be when the Department of Justice actually begins defining what are the boundaries of religious liberties. And when that comes out, we're actually going to see some teeth to what the executive order holds. So it's kind of a two-step process, and I'm very pleased to see this happening right now.
Where would you like to see more freedom to practice your faith? What areas of society are we lacking?
Well, look, we're seeing it all over the place. We're seeing everything from bakers who are being sued because they didn't want to participate in a same-sex wedding. When does a government have the right to force people to participate in ceremonies that they don't want to participate in? Mm-hmm. I mean, and it was all, we have examples of fire chiefs. We have pastors from sermons who are being subpoenaed by government to check what was in. I mean, there are multiple ways in which this has occurred. One that personally I have experience with is regarding the Johnson Amendment, which the president has been very vocal needs to be repealed, and I have a bill to do that. Whip Steve Scalise and myself have the Free Speech Fairness Act that restricts what can be said in churches. It literally allows the government to police sermons, and if it's deemed too political, the church could potentially be sued or lose their tax-exempt status. If there is any place where religious liberties apply, it ought to be in a church.
Have you ever been either delivering a sermon or just preparing one and had to hold back because you were fearful of violating some sort of law or ordinance?
I see that all the time. Of course, I was a pastor for 25 years. Every election cycle, I used to receive threatening letters that I cannot address certain issues, or I could be sued, our church could be sued, we could lose tax-exempt status. They always referred to the Johnson Amendment and all this kind of stuff as though, we're breaking the law if we address political issues from a biblical perspective.
Right.
And, all this stuff starts getting very muddied. It's an extremely vague portion of the IRS code, and it has become a fear tactic to silence people from addressing issues that the First Amendment protects. And so, so to answer your question, there are multiple ways where religious liberties are being infringed upon. And, this applies not only to a believer or it's a non-believer or someone of a different faith or a Muslim or whatever it is. This is religious liberties. Whether you have a particular faith or not, you have the right to live according to the dictates of your conscience and to live out loud those dictates to the extent that it is within the boundaries of the law.
You led the effort in Barrow County, Georgia a few years back, as a lot of our viewers will remember, to have the Ten Commandments displayed in the courthouse there in Barrow County. The ACLU came after you. You lost that court battle. But what struck me during that whole time was that you said that your efforts were, perhaps less about displaying the actual Ten Commandments and more about restoring a common moral code. Has America's moral code been restored?
Oh, no. I think that it doesn't take much to look around and say we're losing our soul in this country. And, the part of the whole thing to me, Brad, is our country was based upon the understanding of limited government. And our founders gave us, within that constitutionally limited government concept, the understanding the only way you can have limited government is when you have people who are self-governing their own lives with a genuine understanding of right and wrong. And within that understanding, they recognize the role of religion. They recognize the role of personal morality. And so they encouraged religious expression. And out of that, the First Amendment sings loudly and clearly that government's not going to interfere with religious belief or the ability to express those beliefs in the public square, because it's a part of our whole system, and it's extremely important.
I think sometimes, especially after an election, people watch you all in D.C. and they say, this is it. This is the time when things are going to change. This is the time when the moral code will be restored, when the ship will be righted. And it doesn't happen. And when you say something like, we've lost our soul, I mean, that's powerful. And my question to you is, when will we stop spinning our wheels? When can the voters back home say, there it is, now we're moving forward? Republicans have the majority in both houses. You have the White House. Why isn't anything happening?
Yeah, and those are great questions. And I've asked myself those questions many times. And
what's
now,
it like up there?
Yeah,
are you banging your head against the wall?
Yeah, it's a very slow process. It's very difficult to move the needle in Washington. It's a lot bigger and deeper and wider and thicker and all that kind of stuff than I ever imagined. But there are some awesome people up there. But you understand, you've got not only two parties, but you have Washington is a microcosm of our entire nation. Every one of those people up there are representing a district that voted them because that person adheres to the beliefs and values of that district more than anyone else who is running. And then you have the same thing in the Senate. And so you have 535 people, all of whom are representing different groups in our country, and it's a diverse country. And within that, there's two primary parties that are diverse. And within that context, it's very slow to move the needle. As well it should be. You don't want a particular party coming and just cleaning the slate and making everything different. It is designed to be a slow process to protect everyone, but within that it is very much frustrating at times because it is so slow.
It's not what you pictured, is it?
Not entirely. I had somewhat of an understanding. I think we all get a little bit of an understanding, but being there, it's a bit messier than what I had imagined.
Yeah, Congressman Rick Allen, right after he was elected, sat in that same chair and pretty much said the same thing. You know, a lot of the things were as he expected, but the slowness certainly kind of slaps you in the face when you get up there. Let me ask you about cybersecurity. I attended a meeting not too long ago where I was overwhelmed by the level of cyber threats that we face every day. Tons. How do you feel America is doing when it comes to thwarting those threats?
Well, the beginning point, I think we're doing good in coming to the realization that this is a massive, major threat, one that we must be equipped and ready to handle. And that's why we're so blessed to have Fort Gordon here, and the job they are doing is just remarkable in the cybersecurity. And this is, I think, probably certainly one of the top 3 areas that our national security has got to stay focused on.
You know, it's really mind-blowing when you think about the people who are out there trying to get into our bank accounts, who are trying to shut off our electrical systems. Why don't they just do it? I've been told they have the capability. What's keeping those people? Is it fear of World War III? Why don't they just do it and then we retaliate?
Well, I don't have the answer to that. We have some very high technical defense systems and some great people that are involved in preventing a lot of that from happening. But it still happens. I mean, we've all seen the breaches of data that's very frightening. I just hope they don't succeed, and that we continue having the caliber of what's happening here in our own cybersecurity right here at Fort Gordon.
Yeah, you're right. We are working hard to stop it, and a lot of that work is happening right here. It's a great point. Probably my last question. You go back to the Hill in a few days to resume your work. Can you give us a feel for the possibility of the Republican Party uniting anytime soon? You all seem very split, to say the least, right now, fractured. When can y'all all get together and start acting as one? Or do we need to go back to what you just said, that it's not going to happen?
Yeah, listen, I mean, the process is designed for people to come up and lay their ideas on the table. You duke it out, and the one whose ideas gets the most support rises to the top. It's not designed to where we all come to the table and say, we'll do what so-and-so wants done. I mean, and in that regard, it is a bit messy. The party is not fragmented like the media would have you believe, but it is filled with ideas. And within that, there are different groups who believe we need to go this way or whatever. But at the end of the day, we all want to go to the same point. We're all, for example, with health care, we all want to repeal and replace Obamacare with something that's going to be good for the American people. Now, within that goal, there's some believe we ought to do it this way, others this way. And so there's difference of opinion, but we're moving in the same direction. And so the fragmented part is not the issue. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there with tax reform. We're gonna get there with rebuilding our military. We're gonna get there with all these issues. But along the way, there will be lots of discussion.
Well, we are going to look forward to you keeping us posted, hopefully, in the months and years to come about what's going on Capitol Hill, and we thank you for your service for sure.
Well, thank you very much. Always an honor to be with you.
Absolutely. Us too. Congressman Jody Hice of Georgia's 10th District.